Welcome to my guide for the Aetherblade Hideout Strike Mission on Challenge Mode. I won't be explaining the basic normal mode mechanics here, so go and watch my normal mode guide before if you're unfamiliar with the general flow of this fight or want a recap. The first thing that's very important to realize about this encounter is that it's going to require a good group composition. There are both damage and healing checks that your group will need to pass to achieve victory. For this reason, before beginning the fight, make sure your team has a healer in each subgroup alongside sources of might, fury, quickness, alacrity, and protection in both subgroups as well. If you enter this fight unprepared, you're going to have an extremely bad time, and almost certainly enrage the boss or just wipe. You have 10 minutes to beat the whole encounter before you get hit by a giant laser and die horribly, and the healing is also very important because going downstate or even losing a player or two can quickly spiral into disaster, or simply just not having enough damage to get the win. For this reason, I would also recommend being familiar with your rotation and key abilities to use, especially when it comes to defensive abilities that can help you survive, as you won't always be able to rely on your supports, and a few downstates can quickly snowball and destabilize the squad. Because this encounter has quite bursty damage, damage reduction ascended food can be particularly powerful here, as it will help players stay alive and reduce pressure on your healers. In general, for endgame content, always try to use consumables. They're a very nice extra edge to have when it comes to your boon output, damage output, and survivability. Supports also get incredible value, as their consumables often have percentage healing modifiers, which dramatically improve their effectiveness. If you play a healer without bountiful maintenance oil and delicious rice balls, you are just depriving yourself of seeing some absurd green numbers, so don't miss out. I would also highly recommend using voice communications when you're learning for the first time. It will greatly increase your ability to learn the mechanics and keep chaotic situations under control. Now let's talk about the boss. The first mechanic you'll encounter on challenge mode is exposed. Bosses are done with you just breaking defiance, making them take extra damage, so now they're applying it to you. Getting hit by Mai Trin's conal shot attack, or shockwaves in the Scarlet Briar phase, will apply a stack of exposed to you, causing the player to take 25% more damage per stack, lasting for a minute. Needless to say, getting hit by this more than once is extremely bad, as it will quickly get to the point where you can't survive any attacks. This is especially important during the Echo of Scarlet Briar phase, as the damage there is quite extreme. You should avoid these attacks at all costs. You can dodge or block the conal attacks, or simply move out of them. You should always try to jump over the shockwaves to avoid wasting defensive abilities, but you can still dodge or block them with channeled abilities. Aegis won't work super well, as the shockwaves tend to hit multiple times. As a nice bonus meme, standing in the impact zone of the shockwave will instantly kill you with no downstate, so watch out for that. Moving on to the Phantom phase, which you'll see at 30% on Mai Trin and 80 and 40% on the Echo of Scarlet Briar phase. First of all, the exploding circles that target every player are much larger, making it very important to use the whole arena to spread out and avoid getting hit. During the initial set of circles, what you want to do is drop all of your crowd control on the Defiance Bar Phantom and then spread out, killing any small phantoms within your range. Players should use defensives and self-sustain to survive here, as going downstate can quickly lead to chaos. Healers should also be on the lookout to try to use ranged support to keep players alive. As an additional punish, getting hit by the exploding circles also applies exposed to the foolish players, so even if you do somehow survive an overlap, the next set of attacks will be much more uncomfortable. After the circles explode, then move to the Phantom with no Defiance Bar to handle the green circle. Speaking of which, the green circle mechanic is entirely reworked to be far more dangerous. The way it works is that unless 3 or more players are in the circle when it explodes, the entire group will die with no downstate. That doesn't seem too interesting, but the other change is that anyone inside the circle will get a purple status effect called photon saturation, meaning that being in another green circle will instantly kill the player. This means that you can only take 1 green circle in the entire fight. Because of this, you'll need to make sure exactly 3 players go in each green circle, or you'll run out of players without photon saturation and inevitably lose squad members. This is actually really well telegraphed by the green circle itself. If there are not enough players in the circle, green arrows will point inwards, too many, orange arrows will point outwards, and if exactly 3 players are in the circle, a green swirl will be present. If mistakes end up being made and for whatever reason there just aren't enough players to go in the green circle, then you can sacrifice yourself even if you have the photon saturation effect, which will prevent a wipe, at the cost of your life. Additionally, if you use the /GG command with the green circle targeting you, you can despawn it, meaning that if actually doing the mechanic would result in multiple deaths because no players are able to take the green without dying, then it's better to just sacrifice yourself directly to minimize the damage to the squad. So what's the way to deal with this mechanic easily? Well, first up, you could just handle it reactively, having the player with the green circle move out of the main stack and then having other players move into it until there are exactly 3, using the telegraphing that we discussed earlier. This can work particularly well in voice, as you can quickly call if you're going into the circle or leaving. However, there is another strategy that I think is extremely effective, particularly for pickup groups. What you can do is set up 3 markers in a triangle around where the Phantom with no Defiance bar is going to spawn, just like this, right before the fight. An anchor point is that the arrow marker always goes on a patch of darkened ground, so you can always get it just about right. It doesn't have to be perfect, just good enough to get the point across though. What you can then do is have 3 players stand on each marker before starting the encounter to assign them to that marker, or just do this manually. During the Phantom phase, have the assigned players always stand on their marker. This means that no matter who the green circle targets, there will always be 3 players in it immediately. All you need to do is not stand in the green if it doesn't spawn on your marker. With this strategy, you'll have 1 backup player for safety too, in case someone is dead. Assign the backup player to a marker as normal, but just have them move out of the circle unless they are needed or they themselves are targeted. After the green circle has exploded, you can just stack back up again to finish off the Phantom. After that, finish breaking the Defiance Bar Phantom and get back to the boss. One quick thing here is that you might think that you can be very clever and burst the Phantom down to despawn the green circle, but the developers actually thought of this, and it will go invulnerable at 0% until the first circle explodes. Things also get a lot more exciting during the Echo of Scarlet Briar phase. The key difference here is just the damage output. The spiral area attack hits significantly harder and will demolish players who have the exposed effect. And the boss will also be constantly firing out little orbs that deal heavy damage. Do not be directly in the hitbox or you will have a very unfortunate time. What you want to do here is stack just outside of the hitbox and spam a bunch of projectile destruction, which will completely destroy the orbs. Abilities such as Playing Firebrand, Sanctuary, Walls of Reflection, Corrosive Poison Cloud, Barrier Signet, Protective Solace, Feedback, and so on will massively reduce the damage taken here. It is extremely important to stay stacked so your healers can put in the work and keep everyone alive and healthy, or revive them while shielding them with Reflects and Projectile Destruction. When the boss casts the spiral area attacks, healers should blast Healing and Barrier as hard as possible to counter the damage, and players can use defensive abilities or dodge to avoid death. Take responsibility for your own survival here. Powerful revival from builds such as Heal Catalyst, Heal Scourge, Scrapper, Druid, or Guardian are unbelievably useful here. Barrier gets a special mention because of how insanely effective it is at preventing players from being destroyed by orbs or the spirals. Running a Heal Scourge, Spectre, or Mech can carry very hard, especially Scourge because of the barrier being massive, very bursty, and 10 targets. Do not move into the boss hitbox during this phase, or the orbs will instantly obliterate you. If you need to move, try to move as a big group and around the boss, not through it. The fun doesn't end there though. The lightning is also juiced up. This time, 2 players will get the lightning mechanic, and it also hits much harder and will almost immediately delete players if they are caught in the area. The lightning also spawns much more frequently, and as a result will take up a lot of space in the arena. To counter this, you'll want both players who get the lightning at the same time to stack them at the edge of the arena to minimize the space they take up. As soon as the lightning has fixed in place and is about to spawn, get out and get back to the group. Do everything you can to not go downstate when you get lightning, because you will be very hard to revive if you do. Use defensives, self-healing, and everything you've got to stay alive. Healers should also be babysitting lightning players to ensure their survival. As the fight progresses, lightning will probably overlap with Mai Trin conal attacks. Always prioritize handling the lightning correctly. Getting hit by a cone can be painful and cause a downstate down the line, but a poor lightning can very easily kill a player or multiple players outright. Try to move with the lightning out of range of the cone if you can though. With careful movement, you can always mitigate this overlap. The final big change, and perhaps the most dramatic, is the bomb phase, which will happen at 60% and 20% on the Echo of Scarlet Briar phase. It seems complicated, but once you understand it, it's actually not a problem at all. 3 ferrous bombs will spawn in the arena and you need to kill one of them, which will make the other 2 go invulnerable. I mark the bomb to kill with a triangle for simplicity, but it actually doesn't matter which one you go for. It just makes it more straightforward for people to handle, as the bomb you kill will always be the safe zone for this phase, so everyone will need to stack in the same place. 2 random players will also be affected by cross-shaped laser attacks that are just like the laser beam on normal mode. They will instantly kill all players caught in their blast after a short delay. Now the key here is that those players have a special action hotkey they can use to attach their cross laser to a bomb, so they can go and stack in the safe zone with the rest of the players. However, the players must make sure that their laser cross attacks they place do not overlap with the safe zone, or everyone is doomed and will not be able to survive. You have a lot of time to set this up, so have the players with the action keys just move to the remaining 2 bombs and test the placement. The 2 laser players should avoid standing on top of each other, as it can make it very difficult to see whose lasers are whose. Have them move to each one of the remaining bombs and test that configuration. If it's no good, then swap over, and that will always be correct because, well, there are only 2 options. Be aware that the action key will attach the cross to the closest bomb to you, so make sure that you're right next to the one you want to guarantee correct positioning. After the lasers have been placed correctly, simply stack up in the safe zone and wait for the next phase. After you've learned that, that's it for the challenge mode. The final 20% is just what you've seen before, except the small phantoms that fire out the orbs will spawn significantly more frequently. However, the boss should die before they become too scary. A necromancer with Epidemic can also shut them down very easily if needed. A tip for the last phase is that if time is running low, just ignore the Mai Trin conal attacks and blast the boss. Have your healers work overtime and blow all their cooldowns. You have to go all out if time is a pressure, because the Enrage is an immediate failure. The boss becomes untargetable and kills you, so you cannot recover. Before we go to a full playthrough of the fight with commentary, let's quickly talk about some really powerful composition choices you can make to crush this encounter. First up, it's definitely Heal Scourge. The extreme barrier and revive power will pretty much prevent deaths to anything except the instant kill mechanics, while being capable of saving players from dangerous situations like downstating in the lightning or inside the hitbox where they might be otherwise hard to revive. Be careful with transfusion though. You don't want to transfuse a lightning or a spread mechanic bomb onto yourself. You can also just play a hybrid like Celestial or Plague Doctor to avoid losing much damage as well, and just run it as an extra half healer in addition to the regular double healer. If you happen to have loads of aggressive boon professions like Quickness Firebrand and an Alacrity damage mech, then you can just bring full Heal Scourge online for the ultimate carry, but the hybrid builds will do just fine. It also has the added benefit of Corrosive Poison Cloud for projectile destruction. In other news, Guardian is quite good. Sanctuary is a ridiculous skill for Defiance Bars and handling the Defiance Bar Phantom in particular. If a bunch of Guardians drop Sanctuary on it, the bar will be mostly broken by the time you're done with the other Phantom. It also destroys projectiles and even heals a bit for good measure. Firebrand also happens to have quickness and incredible defensive utility, including more reflects, which makes it very strong for this encounter. Heal Firebrand also happens to have a very strong burst healing potential, and can take Wall of Reflection really easily for nearly permanent projectile breaking uptime. Regular DPS Scourge is similarly great because it's durable, has good group support, does high range damage, and can block projectiles. Spectre is also a fantastic choice because of its incredible bonus support from Consume Shadows, all-round great damage, boon support options, and powerful Defiance Bar breaking powers. Heal Mechanist is also excellent thanks to its extreme boon application, very high sustained stack healing, good barrier, and of course projectile block from Barrier Signet. I do want to stress that any sensible, boon-filled, balanced composition will work just fine. These are just some of the honorable mentions that I think can really make this encounter significantly easier. You do not need to build a group purely from what I've suggested here to succeed, and in fact you probably shouldn't, or you'll end up waiting around in the looking for group section for overly specific compositions. A special shout out has to go to Vigor. As a quick reminder, Vigor grants you 50% increased endurance regeneration, allowing you to dodge significantly more often. This encounter is pretty damage intensive, so having some extra evades to help mitigate that can really make the difference. And as one final thing, I want to repeat this. Take responsibility for your own survival on this encounter. Healers should always try to notice players in trouble, but it is extremely important to know and use your defensive abilities on this encounter, as the healers may not always be able to save you, and if you tank too many mechanics, they definitely can't. Next up here is a full kill with commentary to display exactly how everything fits together and how to deal with the mechanics in real time. I've also linked an example of me leading the boss on voice in the description of this video, if you're interested in the calls made to lead the team to a glorious victory and some of the key things to call out. Let us now see how it all fits together. You can see our beautiful markers set up there. We've already got our players pre-assigned on who's going where on those green circles later on in the encounter. The first phase here isn't really anything too crazy. It's just a case of practicing dodging the exposed conal attack that we see from the boss here and breaking the Defiance Bar. Don't go too crazy on the Defiance Bar here, because you are going to need a lot of crowd control to handle the Defiance Bar Phantom when we get to around 30% here, but before then you can just fully unleash. Hitting the boss there, nothing too crazy really, you know, the boss is not too much of a threat. Try to interrupt some of her attacks, particularly that charge attack. If you can break a Defiance Bar during that charge, she won't leap, it will get cancelled, and that means that you can not lose some DPS there, because of course when the boss moves, it's not good. We like nice static golem targets, but that's basically all there is to know about this encounter. Just get rid of all of that hit points, go as hard as you can on damage, and then get ready for the 30% Defiance Bar Phantom and Damage Phantom with our first green circle. So you can see what we're going to do here. We're going to spread out as much as we possibly can, using the whole room, dropping all of our sanctuaries. Look at those guardians getting to work there, before moving over to where the green circle is going to spawn, getting in position already, just surrounding that, making sure you're in boon range. That's why you want the markers to be quite close together. The green circle spawns, and boom, away we go. Very, very easy. One player was out of position there, but they just moved to where they're supposed to be, and immediately the mechanic is completely solved. After that, go over to the other side, break the Defiance Bar, and then it's simply a case of getting the boss to 10% to start the next phase of this encounter. While we're waiting for that, I just want to quickly remark on the group composition. You've probably noticed the huge amount of guardians we have here, and while this is incredibly effective thanks to Sanctuary, the reflect uptime, and all that sort of guardian goodness, this was actually unintentional. I just asked for a bunch of experienced players on stream, and this is what we ended up with. What can I say? Those guardians, they're a bunch of tryhards. They've all got this content nailed down in just a very, very short period of time. The first 20% of Scarlet Briar is also pretty uneventful. Simply break the Defiance Bar and beat her down to 80%. There's not too much to worry about here. Healers are going to start to get a feel of how much damage that spiraling attack is going to do. It's quite a lot, so watch out for that. And of course we have the Shockwave coming up shortly too, before we get to the first Phantom phase in this section of the encounter. If the Shockwave is quite close to the group, like it was there, simply move away from it so it's a little bit easier to jump over and dodge. You don't want to waste defensive cooldowns there, or even evades. Just use that keyboard and get away from that. Here's the next Phantom phase. It's just like it was before. We just drop down all of our crowd control on the Defiance Bar Phantom and then spread outside the room. Watch out for the spirals here as well. You can definitely take damage. You can see one player getting hit quite quickly there, taking a lot of damage. While you're spreading, you can also work on killing the smaller Phantoms too. They do a good amount of damage. They're worth cleaning up. But our strategy for the green circle, look how easy that is. Everyone already in position. Easy green. Absolutely no problem there whatsoever in getting that done. No stress. Very easy. Taking out this Phantom, then we're going to move to the other side of the arena just to finish off that Defiance Bar. watching out for any area of effect attacks, then going back to the boss. There it is. There's a shockwave up, so here it comes. We jump over that. It's Defiance Bar time. Those Guardians getting to work with those Sanctuaries. Very, very balanced ability, by the way. Then moving to the Lightnings. Lightning just moving out to the back, getting those down, stacking them up quite nicely, and then moving back over to the boss. That's it for now, really. Just keep the reflects up here. You can see that there aren't even any orbs actually coming out from the boss because we have such crazy reflect uptime. Really nice lightning placements here. You can see how the players stack them perfectly and make them overlap with the old ones too, minimizing the space taken up in the arena by damaging area attacks. That might seem like a small optimization, but it can really make the difference. If you have the lightnings just all over the place, it can get pretty chaotic, particularly when you start to get to the later stages of this encounter, where you're having to deal with the cones at the same time as the other main boss mechanics. Having plenty of space to maneuver makes it significantly easier to avoid taking additional damage or exposed stacks. I'm just looking there to see if those players are in trouble, because if they go down set in the lightning, it is catastrophic. Very, very dangerous indeed. Funny story about that Willbender. The Willbender F1 skill is really weird here. It will take you directly into the hitbox, which, well, if you watch this video, you'll know that that tends to not go very well for you, so that player has a bit of a rough time in this encounter. And it's bomb time. So we go over to triangle to eliminate that Ferrous Bomb, and I actually have the action key here, so I move over to where I've got to be, checking that alignment to make sure it's not going to kill everyone, before pressing the action key to attach the laser to the bomb, and then going to the safe zone. And you can see how much time you have. Like, the real key in this phase is to not panic. You have a lot of time, and if you mess up, you lose instantly, so make sure you get it right. Okay, always take your time, swap if you need to. Bear that in mind. There's only one configuration that's going to work, so that's just the way it is. And here we go. It's another set of lightnings there. Just those players placing them back. Those players were very, very healthy, so no need to worry about them too much. Bit of a scuffed placement there, but it's not too bad. Moving away from that shockwave and restacking. Of course, below that 60% marker, we have the addition of some extra cones coming into play, so just try to avoid those as much as you possibly can. You can dodge them if you want or block them or anything like that, but usually the keyboard is the way to go there, right? Don't waste any cooldowns if you don't need to. You shouldn't be that tight on DPS that it matters anyway. So, it's another Phantom phase at 40%, and just like before, it's going to be identical. Watch out for the shockwaves, like I just did, okay? And then take all that small Phantoms out, then move over to the Damage Phantom, ready for the final green circle. Again, if you use this marker strategy, this should be absolutely no issue. If you do have a player dead, then, well, do what you gotta do to get the job done, but other than that, as you can see them, very, very simple. No panic, no stress. Green circle completed, Phantom about to go down, then we're gonna move over to the other side to finish off the remaining Defiance Bar Phantom and a little Orb Phantom there as well. And here it is. That's it. I mean, it's so easy. Not a problem there whatsoever. And that's what I really like about that strategy in particular, is that it does make that phase way less chaotic, right? Like, this type of kind of panic, chaos, madness going on, that's what's going to cause you wipes. So using strategy and technique to avoid that is exactly how you can get this fight down quickly and efficiently. But other than that, you've seen everything so far. I mean, you're watching it right now. It's exactly the same. Look at that lightning placement there. You know, I've a bunch of noobs here, but it doesn't really matter too much there. You know, it's a decent placement. It's going to work out okay for us. Going into the next bomb phase, and of course, the quicker you kill this boss, the less the lightning placement matters. Don't rely on that, though. Always do it correctly. Don't follow our example here. But just repeating this now, it's the bombs. Triangle is the place to be, so we're eliminating that, and then it's just a case of getting those placed correctly. And in fact, they were done immediately there by the players. They went to the correct locations instantaneously. Very, very easy. Plenty of time. Look at all this time. We're waiting for the boss. Like, the enrage time is ticking down. Come on, boss, let's go. Anyway, the final 20% really isn't anything too special. If you've made it past this point, there's pretty much no way to wipe unless you don't have any players left over. Keep an eye on the enrage time here, as it is a complete hard enrage. You will instantly die with no chance of recovery if you do end up falling here. So make sure you keep the mechanical execution up here, keep those players alive, get those lightnings placed correctly. And if you have to, just ignore the cones. We actually do that here just for demonstrative purposes, showing that you can. You just completely ignore this. We're just going to keep blasting. We out-heal it. Full DPS, get the boss done, and get your 1 gold, you know? Easy 1 gold. A few smaller phantoms will start to spawn here, but they really aren't relevant. If they are, you run out of time at that point. So just completely ignore them and blast the boss down. Simple as that. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the companion guide for this encounter on hardstuck.gg as an additional learning aid and as a quick resource to link to your team. Everything is displayed visually with clear examples on how to handle each mechanic, and indeed every mechanic in the entire game, as we have all group content and more broken down and explained there. So take a look and dive into the wonderful world of endgame in Guild Wars 2. As always, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments or ask me and the team directly on Discord. Subscribe and follow me everywhere for more content, and I'll see you next time.